Now we have the Smart Energy Catalyst, and we have Anders Weiden of BaseN, and he's going to take us through the Smart Energy Catalyst and how this is working with the utilities industry to leverage common practices from both the telecommunications industry and the energy or utilities industry, and the sharing back between these two industries. Thank you, Anders.
Thank you, Jan. Good morning from San Jose. Again, my name is Anders Weiden. I'm a VP of Product Management at BaseN. In my day job, my evening job, I'm leading a few efforts here at TMF, including the Smart Energy Catalyst. I'm actually going to do a quick overview to begin with, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Dave Twitchell from Esri. His role is with Esri. Esri is the utility specialist there. Very knowledgeable man. And he will actually go through a demo of one of the use cases that we're showcasing here. So the Smart Energy Catalyst is solidifying the digital handshake, and I'll get into what we mean with that in a bit. At this stage, it's championed by BC Hydro, Quebec, two big Canadian utilities, as well as some Birmingham City universities. As I'm representing a smart city, but one that is very heavily focused on smart energy at this time. Participants, BaseN, Esri, and Infonova, and supporters has been Ericsson and integrated architectures. So next slide, we have this control here. Let me see if I can get this. There we go. Why smart energy? We've been driving this catalyst for a few rounds now in this, and San Jose, this afternoon live, and so on. And we will probably continue. It's maturing over time. Fundamental reason why we're dealing with this in TMF, some people ask, is really, well, driving behind smart grid and smart energy today. Ever increasing energy consumption, things like population growth. This is just getting, tremendous amount of people are going to have to need energy down the road here in just a few years. Places like China see a massive population growth in terms of people also needing to get connected, use energy for their daily lives and so on. And prices are skyrocketing, so we're simply looking at to be smarter and find alternatives. That's going on across the world. And a lot of this is also connected with climate change and dramatic increase in renewables, solar, wind especially. A good day in California, for example, sunny day, windy day, we generate as much as 25% or something like that in terms of just alternative energy production. And that goes down as immediately almost when we get the weather changing. So this also means that you have to do much more real-time and better planning for sort of backup resources and getting back up again. And consumers like myself, and the solar panel and so on, I expect the smart energy in terms of not billing me for things that I don't use. If I'm in a good day producing my entire house's need of electricity myself, I shouldn't be billed for that. That's a whole novel thing actually for the utility to deal with today. So a lot of these kind of fundamental drivers. Another one, maybe a surprising one, a very new one, is energy theft. It's been going on in locations like India for years, but it's actually taking root quickly in the UK, for example. People are increasingly hiring, I would say questionable utility workers in the black market to bypass the utility connections and meters, both for gas and electricity. Some of that become really dangerous stuff, by the way. It's also very predominant now moving up the scale on the East Coast in the US and Canada especially. We grow houses, so people are actually growing things that shouldn't grow in cold locations. And having them to be very, very hot. There's an opportunity, we talk about these things and this is already happening, it's already been going on for a few years, to deploy new communications equipment along the power grids to basically manage them better and more flexibly, and see what's going on at any given point in time. Both from a management point of view, but also from detecting problems early on. And we will go through some of these use cases here today and demo one of them. Thus, for us who have been traditionally in the telecommunications space, a lot of us have been members in TMF, we have sort of been growing up in this market where we have fair amount of expertise in managing networks, internet, IP, ICT, and so on. And that's precisely what's getting to be deployed and looking at getting to be increasingly deployed along the power grids and making them smarter, hence smart grid. At the same time, we're seeing several major utilities actually a bit struggling with deploying these new smart grid solutions. Have no issues with the traditional utility and SCADA stuff at all. That's been in place, there's plenty of standards there. It's a very well-established industry, something in some cases 700 years, and so on. But when we talk about the mix of old and new utility equipment and then bringing in the digitized equipment and the solutions and software and so on, it gets pretty messy for them. And several of them have actually on their own started to look at things like frameworks. Can that be used in some ways to just map out what we need from a solutions point of view? And we find that quite interesting. So one of the things we've done with this catalyst over time has gone up is to start to see if we can map the needed functions into the framework sensors that BMF has built up over time from the telco space, but then basically map into this new utility area. And as I said, looking back, the catalyst has over time dealt with very much different sort of perspective in the past, but fundamentally as mapping out what the landscape is. Things like where does sort of smart energy and smart grid live? Field area network management and operations. It is about energy monitoring still for sure. It's about network monitoring from an IT angle these days as well. It's about workforce management, etc. I won't spend time too much on this slide, but it is a pretty big topic. Out of this, we have selected several different use cases to become a bit more focused in the last year. We're building on previous catalyst activities. And again, it's all about how utilities can benefit from incorporating digital products and services in the energy grid to make it less more intelligently smart grid. And we're showcasing a series of end-to-end use case flows. Built on the fact that we interviewed a series of utilities about what are your sort of top 5 reasons for even being in this kind of business to begin with. Why are you doing this? And what are the key drivers for you? Turns out that they're not the same for each utility at all. There can be a big variety of reasons why they're doing this. Some of them are really doing it because of energy theft problems. Other ones are doing it predominantly in the East Coast, US and Canada because of these big hurricanes coming in frequency like Sandy and so on. And yet other reasons in Europe for being much more efficient about how you manage renewable sources, backup power and nuclear, which is coming under question in Greece and Germany, for example, as we know. This is the first round of the catalyst where we also began to map security fabric elements from NIST into this. Not really from frameworks, but actually at least starting to identify what kind of security components ought to be put in place when you construct and build device, equipment, and so on in this area, but also actually what do you need to be prepared to deal with after you deploy smart grids. People are going to do bad things anyway, and you can just count on that. And you need to deal with it once they've started to do so people can mitigate the threats. So that's the beginning point. Series of 6 use cases. 3 of them, A, B, C here. We have actually implemented demos for. We have integration going between the participants. They are live. There is real code working in the back end shown in this catalyst by now. The other 3, although several of us are actually actively in production with customers doing some of these things, we've decided not to try to implement all of that too within the catalyst itself. Simply is too much to try to show off. Things like setup and change of utility service, roll out of a smart meter, for example, or adding and replacing solar panels. Things like variable energy usage. Can I sort of see how I get the change bill depending on how I manage my energy consumption at home? If I actually charge in energy from the home upwards to a solar panel, that should affect my bill real time, and so on. C, probably the most appealing one here at the US East Coast at least. Large widespread fault and grid outage here in Florida, which we're going to see now soon in the demo here from Dave Picture from Esri, and how we actually get back into shape, fix that, and get back up and running again as quick as possible. This is a major reason for the Department of Energy in the US actually spending quite a bit of money on the utility modernization in the US. And then coping with variable energy sources, using solar, wind, and hydro energy, and electric vehicles on a large scale, real-time need for that. As I mentioned, the California case, this is what ISO does here pretty much every day now. demand response, be able to control, get an agreement with carpenters in place to actually be able to have the right as a utility, for example, PG&E to go into my home and turn down my AC at high peak times of the summer, or to basically avoid rolling blackouts and having to do them anymore. Energy factor, again, I mentioned that before, we're sort of exemplifying that as well. And the setup of this is actually, it's almost by accident. It's all cloud-based actually. We all operate on clouds. BaseN have a cloud-based monitoring solution for both IP monitoring and energy monitoring and some grid control. Infonova is a cloud-based system for billing and revenue management and provisioning configuration orchestration. Esri is a cloud-based solution for mapping location and a very sophisticated GIS solution, which you're going to see soon here. And Emacs is an open spot right now for a cloud-based workforce management team. We used to have one in the Catalyst, but they couldn't take part in this one, but it's still in the use case flows. We're integrated through our GUIs and portal into the Esri dashboard as well. So it's a very intuitive solution, yet it's not sort of a stovepipe thing to go between these things. That's an example of the security mapping we did. And for each one of these use cases, we provided a summary, but also identified the core value proposition behind it in terms of dollars and euro amounts. Why are people doing this? Why are utilities deploying these things, and what's really driving it? And it's, of course, for each use case, a different reason and a different number, but they are there if you want to consume them a little more. And they come from the real world. And for each use case, we identify these kind of use case flows. And these arrows represent what we call digital handshakes, actually the actual APIs, where we do data handover and data integration between our solutions in order to actually accomplish solving the use case from the beginning to the very end. And this is actually this large grid fault publisher repair use case, which we're going to look at really soon here. From these digital handshakes, we went back to the frameworks team at TMF and started to map and sort of ask ourselves about them rather. Do we have the equivalent corresponding APIs in frameworks assets? And lo and behold, it was pretty easy and quick to find out, yes, we do. And the existing things, like I said, they are represented in the sort of telco world before, when they exist. Do they behave exactly in the same way? Do they put up with the type of data throughput and volume and frequency requirements that we have in the smart grid, which seems to be, by the way, less of a steady spurt of data. It seems to be much more, less of traffic for the most part, but if you do really need to go do something and detect faults and you need to repair and replace that, you get very high volume of frequent data going to a degree which is not normally doesn't live at all. So some differences are already have emerged as being identified between industries in that respect. And everything has been mapped out in terms of who plays what role in this kind of solutions for all 6 use cases, and what type of equipment and what kind of APIs we're talking about. And finally, we also mapped in the business process framework to talk to identify what this is. I expect this activity to go on into the future and sort of become further solidified. We have contributed this mapping that we've done initially for smart energy to frameworks release 14.5 already. So there's a technical report for that. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Dave Cushel from Esri to actually give you a little bit more live demonstration of use casing.
All right, thanks, Anders. We're going to take a look at the large grid outage and repair scenario, but before we can, utility can adequately respond to a large outage, we need to actually start before the storm. So what we're going to show here is a video embedded in PowerPoint. It should be playing already, actually. Can you click play on the video? And what we're going to take a look at is a utility in Fort Pierce, Florida. And we're going to pull in some data from other systems and see where are we most vulnerable. It could be data from the workforce management system and data from our outage management system, and we can pull those together into a model. We can get the video.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will at least talk through what you would have seen if and what you would see here in San Jose, what we're showing live. First, as I mentioned, we start before the storm. Where are we most vulnerable if something were to happen to our network? We take, as I said, those key pieces of information. Where do we have open maintenance tickets? Where are we behind on our tree trimming? Where do we have a history of outages? Where is the network already overloaded? Because that decreases our ability to be flexible and reconfigure the circuits in an outage scenario. All this contributes to vulnerability. We put that into a model within the Esri software, and we get a certain number of specific areas that the model says, here's where we may have a problem if there's a large wind event or a large storm. We then use that and send that information to a workforce management system that would help us pre-position the crews. So we have garage locations all over our service territory based on where we have areas where we think we're vulnerable and with the predicted path of the storm, where should we place our crews. So that sort of sets the stage for a storm to come in. As we walk through the demo of what we're showing upstairs, the BaseN system is out there monitoring. They're listening for things to happen on the network. As the storm comes in and outages start to happen, their system can detect the pings back from the meters that say, I'm out of service. And that information is then fed through a REST API into the Esri database. The other participant, Infonova, also receives that information again through another REST API so that they can manage any of the customer-facing information that would need to be updated. They are managing all the customer billing and notifications. As the outage continues, we can also, in the Esri dashboard, see the areas that are out and areas that are still in service, and then use that to dispatch the crews. So we have their crews that were pre-positioned. Hopefully our outage areas line up with the areas where we thought we would have problems, and indeed in the demo, as you would see, if we had our video working, they would line up, and we'd be able to quickly dispatch the crews and have them sent out to the appropriate locations. We're also able to see some information that we can pull from various different systems about what are the customers that are out, which of them are critical customers, which of them are commercial buildings that we have certain service agreements with, which are hospitals or local government or police or fire, the things that we need to get up and going. We're also monitoring outages on the utility-operated cell towers. This is critical to get up in an outage scenario, and often one of the first things that they look at, so they can communicate with the field crews, they can communicate with the meters, and it gives them a better opportunity to see what's actually going on in real time over the communications network. As the demo progresses, the outage grows. We actually take an entire substation offline, have about 2,000 meters to drop off, and then as the crews are dispatched, they eventually go out to all those problems. As diagnosed, the BaseN does some of the root cause analysis and figures out the cause of each of the outage areas. We dispatch crews, and the outage areas are restored. So that was sort of the demo that we're showing here in Nice. I wish we had the video up and going, but I'm sure we can provide a link to a video afterwards. So, Anders, if you want to rejoin me, I guess we can open up for questions.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Anders. Couple of questions. Is energy supplemented by other power sources, such as wind, solar, etc., accounted for in this model?
It's not in the demo that we're showing. It's not accounted for in terms of the people that would have their, like Anders that has his own solar system, because typically those systems are integrated into the grid. So if the grid goes offline, you wouldn't be able to use your personal solar panel unless you had
system. Let's answer it. That not in use case C per se is not. There's no difference made between I would say smart or electrical equipment, so to speak. Smart meters is one example. You would typically have a lot more transformers, windmills if they are owned by somebody, solar panels, etc. But a storm doesn't really care what it is it owns; it's just going to destroy things. The other use cases, though, that we have deals with several of them with this variable energy sources. So that's really the kind of focus of those use cases and those demonstrations. We have one where I can sit in my apartment and turn things off and reschedule when my pool pump goes on and off during the night and so on, and I see the effect on my bidding right there and then. And if I'm using my windmill and it's actually producing this amount of energy and so on, this is affecting my bill real time too. This is an integration we did between BaseN and Infonova. So it's part of the catalyst for sure.
Excellent, thank you. You're also clearly motivated by wanting to contribute back into the industry. So you had a significant contribution into the Framework 14.05 release, which went live today. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and what we've done so far, I think there still remains to be done a few things, but there was an initial mapping. I mean, look, stepping back, we didn't even know if there was anything that would correspond to these APIs, these integration points that needed to be put in place between the different participating functions from the different teams. We didn't even start with frameworks in mind. We have said, okay, we're hearing from our solution champions, the utility champions for the catalyst, that these are some of the fundamental use cases that they would like to see resolved. And this is real, it's happening, they want to build it out going forward, and so we'll have to. And we start to put these use case flows in place. After we've done that, and then identifying these arrows, these typical handshakes where we need to share data, where anybody who wants to play this kind of solution needs to be able to share data with anybody else participating. We went back and looked at frameworks. Do we have a map for this? Is there already something in place which if I were new to enter this market, people would say, I don't know how to integrate with people. I don't know what's needed. I have no APIs prepared. I don't even talk to the outside world. Very few of us vendors have a situation like that, but some are more evolved and some of us are less evolved that way. There would actually be a lexicon, if you like, in a set of tools, the rest of code samples even to pick up to actually start going in this space. And that's we found very, very encouraging and very interesting. Next step would be to really sort of further scrutinize, will these sort of frameworks, say the REST API, the actual precise implementations they have in place, that are available, will they make the cut in terms of data frequency needed, things like that, or do they need modification? And we have actually now a team involved from the TMF framework side that's actually looking into this. This is very interesting because this is where a lot of the framework assets from TMF, they look like they would apply yes as is, but if we can also make sure that we don't just make assumptions about this, but we're even making getting frameworks versions for utilities in place, then we have started to reach out to all new industry, which is actually in their need of some of that kind of standards, definitions, tools, and so on for your own needs.
Thank you. How receptive is, or how much are you driven by the utilities industry? How do they feel they have these problems solved today, or do they recognize that they clearly have a gap in their end-to-end management capabilities? Talk to me about those dynamics.
I totally get that question, and it's actually good. It's a very general question, and I can add my 2 cents, and you can add to that. I think, let's say 6-8 years ago, the sort of IT geeks like myself, lots of companies were jumping up and down and saying smart grid is going to become the next bigger thing than internet even, and so on. And we are the experts, we know everything. We built networks before, so don't worry about that. We'll take care of this for you. You utilities really don't know anything. Quite frankly, that didn't work out well at all, and wasn't received well. And since then, I think a lot of utilities, the ones that actually have real problems to solve, there might be things like energy theft, but not everybody has a problem with energy theft in the world. It might be issues like big, severe weather problems like in the East Coast US. We don't have those issues as far as we know. Well, there's a big storm coming here tomorrow, but it's by no means comparable to the kind of things that we have seen now several times a year, maybe even on the East Coast US. So those are real issues, those are real problems, those are real reasons for why they need to go out and deploy these kind of smart grids. But then keep in mind there's for different reasons, there's different backgrounds, there's different geographies, there's different problems we're trying to solve. It's a very different topic if we're going to deal with a big hurricane in Florida versus if you're dealing with the Mariana grower in Northern California, for example. Not the same issue at all. But getting the digitized equipment out there so you can detect what's going on, the power being distributed, consumed, or pumped back in, or unaccounted for, and locate sort of, well, it's probably this location where somebody is using this much energy, and we are not getting paid for it. Example in case, and this sounds like horrendous, but it's actually so that the city of Fresno, California, in between Los Angeles and San Francisco, in the middle of Central Valley, they are their own utility. That's a city. They're also a local utility. At one point in time, they had as much as 17% of their entire power production unaccounted for. They did not know who was using that or sucking that up. They just knew that they were getting paid for it. Putting out, new smart meters even to sort of just see where do we have this disconnect between power usage and people paying. They could identify the sources pretty quickly. You go ahead.
The other thing I'll add to that is when you look at the utility systems, they have some of the individual pieces that we've shown here in place. But what I think is this catalyst can really add back to the utility industry is the integrations that we've built. Utility companies we work with typically have their assets mapped in GIS. They have a meter data management system, say from someone like an Itron that can give them information about the meters. But those two systems aren't linked. Over here they have another customer billing system, but they may or may not know that a customer at 123 Main Street is linked to meter 1234 in the GIS. And by building these integrations together, we can really help link systems together and give a good understanding of what's going on in the network with any of the different assets at any given time. And the ability to visualize that, any device, anywhere, at any time. I think in addition, upstairs, in addition to the dashboard we have running, I also have the map of everything on my dashboard or on my iPad that's updating in real time. So I can see, if the operations manager is at home at 3 in the morning, because these outages never happen during business hours, you can actually pull up and see what's going on from his nightstand.
And we're doing energy management from the home on these things, so this is already in place. It's normal web stuff.
So, for example, like the workforce management that you referred to, the kind of automatic deployment of the appropriate workforce, is that something that they manually manage today?
For the most part, yes, and it's also for the most part a standalone system. So we're seeing, the operations manager sees, okay, we have a big outage here. Let's call over to the dispatch center and see who do we have in the area. And they go up and look through, the records they have, or if they have their own workforce management system that has some sort of mapping, and they can say, okay, that location, we see that we have this truck there, but that map is not the same map that shows all the utility assets and the meters and where things are changing, where the outages are. It's a sort of a manual disconnected process in most places.
Before utilities have started, some of them have already begun, but many still have to yet. Before they roll out these kind of sensors, digital equipment, and sort of smart grids and get these kind of solutions in place. I mean, traditionally what they've done after big storms, they go out looking. There's nothing that communicates at all. It's Anders in my home calling saying, I don't have power.
Okay.
Or worse, my transformer is on fire. Okay, so on the fire department plus, it probably needs to be repaired. That's how advanced that was. So it saves a lot of time. It's very costly outages, also from just a private home perspective, but the enterprises we have.
Excellent job, guys. Thank you very much. I think we still have a significant job to communicate the value of these systems, not only to, but with, and to learn and share with the utilities industry. And that is a significant undertaking that we'll need to take forward. But thank you so much. It was really, really great presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.